Highly creative or intelligent individuals are more prone to overthinking because their minds generate endless possibilities. While this is a strength, it can also make it harder for them to settle on one decision or action. Overthinking often feels like a protective mechanism, something that shields us from embarrassment or failure. But in reality, it can hold us back from growth and success. Overthinkers often overanalyze because they're afraid of making mistakes. They want to avoid failure, embarrassment, or criticism at all costs. They often believe, "I just need a little more time to figure things out." They want their plans to be flawless before taking action. But here's the harsh truth. Perfection doesn't exist. Waiting for the perfect moment only ensures that you'll never act. Life is messy. There will always be uncertainties, risks, and unknowns. The longer you wait, the more disconnected you become from the world around you. But this fear is counterproductive. By trying to avoid failure, you end up avoiding action altogether. And inaction is its own kind of failure. A failure to grow, learn, and move forward. Worrying about what others will think can lead to overanalyzing social interactions, decisions, or future plans. People may replay conversations or obsess over how their actions will be perceived. When you overthink, every decision feels monumental. You weigh the pros and cons, consider every possible outcome, and then second-guess yourself. This process doesn't just slow you down, it stops you completely. Let me share a story to illustrate how overthinking can trap us in a cycle of inaction. Imagine a young woman named Rita who recently moved to a new country. She's excited about her fresh start, but there's one big challenge. She can't speak the foreign language fluently. Determined to fit in, she starts studying the language every day. She reads books, listens to podcasts, and even practices speaking in front of the mirror. But when it comes to speaking with actual people, she freezes. Rita is terrified of making mistakes. She thinks, "What if I say the wrong word? What if people laugh at me? What if they think I'm not smart?" These thoughts keep running through her mind. And as a result, she avoids speaking altogether. She convinces herself that she'll speak once she's fluent, once she knows enough to avoid errors. But that day never comes. Months pass, and Rita finds herself stuck. Despite all her studying, her speaking skills haven't improved. Why? Because speaking is a necessary part of learning a new language. By overthinking and avoiding conversations, she's missed countless opportunities to practice, learn, and grow. Rita's story highlights one of the biggest dangers of overthinking. It creates a fear of action. In her mind, she's trying to protect herself from embarrassment, but in reality, she's holding herself back from the very practice she needs to succeed. Overthinking turns into a vicious cycle. She worries about making mistakes, so she doesn't practice. And because she doesn't practice, she never improves. Now, imagine if Rita had taken a different approach. What if she allowed herself to make mistakes? What if she reminded herself that errors are a natural part of learning? What if she had approached each conversation as an opportunity to improve, rather than as a test she might fail? Instead of letting overthinking control her, Rita could have set small, manageable goals. For example, she could have started by saying hello or ordering food at a cafe in the new language. These small actions might not have been perfect, but they would have built her confidence over time. Slowly, those little victories would have added up, and she would have gained the fluency she longed for. The lesson here is clear. Overthinking often comes from a place of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. But fear doesn't lead to success. Action does. Mistakes aren't the enemy. They're part of the process. Whether you're learning a new language, starting a business, or tackling any other challenge, the only way to grow is by stepping out of your comfort zone and taking action, even when it feels uncomfortable or uncertain. Overthinking can feel like a natural part of being cautious or thorough. But when it becomes excessive, it turns into a barrier that holds you back from success. Do you find yourself replaying past mistakes or worrying endlessly about future possibilities? If so, you're not alone. Overthinking is a common struggle, and while it might seem harmless, it can quietly sabotage your progress in life. Let's talk about why overthinking happens, how it affects you, and what you can do to overcome it. Overthinking happens for many reasons. One of the most common causes is fear of failure. You might spend hours, days, or even weeks analyzing a situation, trying to predict every possible outcome, just to avoid making mistakes. When you overthink, your mind becomes a world of its own, a place where everything is analyzed, imagined, and rehearsed. While this mental world can feel safe and controlled, it's also isolating. The real world, with all its messiness and unpredictability, feels distant and overwhelming. Returning to it requires effort, and the longer you stay in your thoughts, the harder this journey becomes. Over time, this disconnect creates frustration. You start to feel stuck, unable to bridge the gap between your ideas and your actions. Let me tell you another story about someone who had a dream, but struggled to take the first step because of overthinking. This is the story of Sophia. She had always dreamed of starting her own YouTube channel. She loved the idea of sharing her thoughts, telling stories, and connecting with people online. Every time she watched her favorite creators, she thought, I can do this too. But when it came to actually starting, doubt and overthinking took over. What if no one watches my videos? Sophia wondered. What if people criticize me or make fun of me? What if my content isn't good enough? What if people leave mean comments? These questions played on repeat in her mind, creating a wall of fear and self-doubt. Sophia told herself that she needed to be perfectly prepared before uploading her first video. Determined to prepare herself, Sophia spent weeks researching everything she could about YouTube. She read blogs on the best cameras to use, watched tutorials on editing software, and planned her content in painstaking detail. But despite all her preparation, she kept finding reasons to delay. I'll start when I get a better camera, she told herself. Then it was, I need a proper microphone first. Later it became, I just need more time to plan the perfect first video. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Sophia's channel remained empty. Meanwhile, her friend Sandra, who also wanted to start a YouTube channel, took a different approach. Sandra didn't have the best equipment, just her phone, and she wasn't an expert at editing. But instead of overthinking and waiting for the perfect moment, Sandra decided to start anyway. Sandra filmed her first video in her living room with no fancy lighting or effects. She stumbled over her words a few times, and her editing was basic at best, but she uploaded it anyway. Sandra knew it wasn't perfect, but she also knew that the only way to improve was by doing. Sophia watched as Sandra uploaded video after video. Sandra learned from her mistakes, tried new things, and slowly but surely started growing her channel. People resonated with Sandra's authenticity and effort, and her subscriber count began to climb. One day, Sophia scrolled through her feed and saw that Sandra had reached 10,000 subscribers. Sophia felt a sharp pang of regret. They had both talked about starting their channels at the same time, but while Sandra had taken action, Sophia was still stuck in her head. Sophia realized that her overthinking had been her biggest obstacle. She had been so focused on avoiding mistakes and creating the perfect plan that she never gave herself a chance to start. Meanwhile, Sandra embraced imperfection, learned along the way, and made consistent progress. Sandra's success wasn't because she had better resources or more talent. It was because she had the courage to take the first step. She understood that growth comes from action, not from endless preparation or overthinking. Sophia's story is a reminder that overthinking can rob you of opportunities. The fear of failure, the need for perfection, and the constant second-guessing had kept her stuck while Sandra was out there learning, growing, and thriving. If you've been dreaming of starting something, a YouTube channel, a project, or a new skill, don't let overthinking hold you back. Start with what you have. Your first attempt doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to exist. Take inspiration from Sandra's journey. Every imperfect action brings you closer to success. While you're busy imagining what if, someone else is out there doing it, and they're capturing the opportunities you're letting slip by. Don't let fear or doubt steal your dreams. Start today, take that leap, and trust that you'll improve as you go. Success favors those who dare to begin. Overthinking also prevents you from taking risks, which are often necessary for success. Imagine you're considering starting a side hustle, but you keep thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if no one buys your product? What if you lose money? What if people criticize your work? These fears keep you from ever starting, even though taking that risk could change your life for good. While you're busy analyzing, others are taking action and seizing opportunities. Picture this. You have a great idea for a business, but instead of launching it, you spend years tweaking your business plan, worrying about funding, and trying to predict every challenge. By the time you're ready to start, someone else has already launched a similar idea and captured the market. Hear a story of Katerina, a talented young woman with a gift for crafting unique handmade candles. She dreamed of starting her own candle business, but every time she thought about it, doubt and fear held her back. What if it fails? Katerina would wonder. What if no one buys them? What if I spend all my money and end up with nothing? She replayed these questions in her mind constantly, convincing herself that she wasn't ready yet. She spent months overthinking. She browsed endless websites on starting a small business, compared candle pricing in the market, and researched branding ideas. But instead of taking action, she kept second-guessing everything. What if my candles aren't good enough? What if I price them too high or too low? The uncertainty paralyzed her. On top of that, she sought opinions from everyone around her. Some told her to go for it. You'll never know unless you try. But others warned her about the risks. The market's competitive. The economy is not great right now. It's hard to stand out, or you might lose money. Every opinion made her doubts grow louder. While Katerina was stuck in her cycle of overthinking, weighing every risk, and imagining worst-case scenarios, her former college classmate Therasa was doing something bold. Therasa had a similar idea of starting a candle business. But unlike Katerina, Therasa didn't wait for the perfect moment. She started small. She made a few batches of candles and posted them online. Her first photos weren't perfect, and her branding wasn't polished. But people started noticing her work. Encouraged by the positive feedback, Therasa improved her designs, learned from her early mistakes, and expanded her offerings. 6 months later, Katerina opened her social media feed to see Therasa's candle business thriving. Therasa had grown her brand, gained loyal customers, and even partnered with a local boutique to sell her products. Katerina couldn't believe it. That could have been me, Katerina thought with a heavy heart. She remembered how she had shared the idea with Therasa during a casual conversation years ago. But while she had been busy overthinking, Therasa had taken action. She felt deep regret. She realized that her fear of failure had kept her from even trying. She had been so focused on planning every little detail and avoiding every possible mistake that she forgot the most important part of starting a business: actually starting. Therasa's success wasn't because she had better candles or more resources than Katerina. It was because Lily wasn't afraid to take that first imperfect step. She embraced the risks, faced the challenges, and grew through the process. This story is a reminder of how overthinking can rob you of opportunities. While she was stuck imagining the worst-case scenarios, her friend was out there learning, building, and growing. Success doesn't come from endless planning or waiting for the perfect moment. It comes from action. If you've been sitting on an idea, afraid to take the leap, let this story teach you this: the only way to learn and grow is by doing. You'll make mistakes, yes, but those mistakes are the stepping stones to success. Don't let the fear of failure hold you back. Start small, start messy, but just start. Because while you're waiting for the perfect time, someone else might be out there living the dream you've been too scared to chase. Another reason for overthinking is anxiety about the future. You might obsess over what could go wrong instead of focusing on what could go right. For instance, before starting a new project, you might find yourself imagining all the ways it could fail. What if the client doesn't like your work? What if you don't meet the deadline? What if you embarrass yourself in front of your team? This constant worrying drains your energy and confidence, leaving you stuck in a cycle of inaction. Imagine you're applying for a new job. Instead of confidently sending in your resume, you keep editing it, doubting whether it's good enough, and worrying if you're even qualified for the role. In the end, you might miss the application deadline altogether. This fear of failure is tied to perfectionism, the belief that everything you do must be flawless. While striving for excellence is good, perfectionism often paralyzes you because you're so focused on avoiding mistakes that you never take action. Lack of confidence is another major factor. When you don't trust your own judgment, you constantly seek reassurance from others or second-guess every decision you make. For example, let's say you're shopping for a new outfit. You spend hours going back and forth between options, asking friends for their opinions, and worrying about whether you'll look good in it. A decision that should take a few minutes ends up consuming your entire day. Past experiences can also contribute to overthinking. If you've faced criticism, failure, or rejection in the past, you might overanalyze every situation to avoid repeating those painful moments. For example, if you once made a mistake during a presentation, you might spend weeks preparing for your next one, rehearsing every word and imagining every possible question the audience could ask. While preparation is important, over-preparation can be counterproductive and lead to burnout. So how does overthinking hold you back? First, it leads to paralysis by analysis. Instead of making a decision and moving forward, you get stuck weighing every possible option. Imagine you're deciding whether to invest in a new skill. You research courses, read reviews, and compare costs, but you never actually enroll because you keep waiting for the perfect option. Meanwhile, others who started learning months ago are already ahead. Another way overthinking holds you back is by damaging your confidence. The more you second-guess yourself, the less you trust your instincts. This lack of self-belief makes it even harder to take bold steps toward your goals. For example, let's say you're considering asking for a promotion. Instead of preparing your case and approaching your boss, you overthink all the reasons they might say no. In the end, you never ask, and someone else gets the opportunity. Procrastination is another major consequence of overthinking. The more you analyze, the harder it becomes to start. For instance, let's say you're writing an essay. Instead of diving in, you spend hours researching, outlining, and worrying about the introduction. Before you know it, the deadline is looming, and you're scrambling to finish. So, how do you know if you're an overthinker? Ask yourself these questions. Do you constantly replay past mistakes in your mind? Do you find it hard to make decisions, even for simple things? Do you spend more time worrying about problems than solving them? Do you often feel mentally exhausted from overanalyzing? If you answered yes to these, you might be stuck in the overthinking trap. Now, let's talk about how to break free. The first step is to set time limits for decisions. Give yourself a deadline to think it over, and then commit to a choice. For example, if you're deciding whether to buy something, set a timer for 10 minutes to weigh the pros and cons. Once the timer goes off, make your decision and move on. Step boldly into the new year. A new year is more than just a change in the calendar. It's a chance to reset, refocus, and reignite your purpose. Whatever happened last year, whether it was filled with triumphs or struggles, know this: you have the power to start fresh and write a new chapter. The road ahead may be uncertain, but don't let that stop you. Every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. You don't need to have everything figured out right now. You just need to start. Dreams become reality when you take action, even when you're unsure. This year, silence the voice of doubt. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if I succeed?" Don't let fear of imperfection keep you from trying. Remember, growth happens outside your comfort zone, and every mistake is a lesson that brings you closer to your goals. Let go of the need to wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. Take that leap, have faith in yourself, and trust the process. You are more resilient, more capable, and more deserving than you realize. Focus on progress, not perfection. Celebrate your small wins. They're the building blocks of bigger victories. Be kind to yourself when things don't go as planned, and keep moving forward. You have everything you need within you to create a year filled with purpose, joy, and fulfillment. Set your goals, believe in your potential, and embrace the journey ahead. This is your time. Make it count.